Oh, there she is. We're live on the internet. We just popped on the internet. I popped on the internet with the great, the one, the only, Minneapolis' own Lizz Winstead.
It's true. It's true.
Writer, activist.
I'm gonna stream to my people too. So let's vamp for a minute. Tell me what you had for lunch.
I'm just vamp about the mundane. No, I'm gonna tell, in case people may not be familiar with your outstanding career. Well, what a career in entertainment, comedy, and activism. The lives she's touched and changed, the accomplishments she's had, the body of work is unparalleled. The co-creator of The Daily Show is probably what she's best known for, but her activism is why I like her best. And we've been friends for a long time, love her. And we are here today to announce that we are betrothed. We got married, and I'm pretty excited about it. So,
we can't be married because you're my little brother. So, yeah. So if you're going to try to spread some kind of weird ass rumor with me, right. I'm here for it. Also, I'm trying to stream to mine, and it's just I got to put some key in. I'm not doing a key. I'm trying to get rid of this, and I'm super not enjoying trying to get rid of it because
she's trying to stream live while I'm streaming live.
Yeah, and I just want this thing to go away because I can't see her face.
Oh, don't worry about my face. No one wants to see it. It's fine. Oh, she's gone, and she hung up on me. Lizz Winstead is gone. She'll be back in just a second. I wanted to talk to Lizz because she, of course, is in Minneapolis, and she's a native daughter of Minneapolis, and she's been there throughout much of the troubles. That doesn't do it justice. Much of the violence in Minneapolis. Benny says, best interview ever. Thank you. I just got an award for the best interview ever for having technical issues and then just having the person disappear. Thank you. Another one. Anyway, I wanted to talk with Lizz, obviously, and this whole week I'm doing my best to talk with folks out in Minneapolis who are getting busy, getting into good trouble, putting their bodies in between ICE, the federal agents, and immigrants and immigrant communities. And so I thought Lizz has been doing that and knows a lot of people who are doing that. And she knows how to work computers. And so she's returned. I don't know.
You know what? I'm not going to I should have set this up in advance and I just didn't. So forget.
That's my fault. I should have given you a heads up, but I did just get I got an award. I just got an award for best interview with Lizz ever.
Oh, because it went off the air?
Because you just disappeared.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hung up on me.
I think that, the fun size Nazi probably cut me off.
Fun size Nazi's on his way out. Have you seen
what happened? Fun size Nazi's on his way out?
The latest news seems to be the tide has turned and that the people of Minnesota have won this battle for a moment. And this is my interpretation, but Greg, he sent Tom Homan in, he's taken Greg Bavino out, and he had a phone call today with the governor who he's been attacking and savaging for weeks. Tim Walz talked to him, and earlier the commander in thief posted that he had a great talk with the governor. And it seems like he is realized he's in too deep, and the horrific killing of Alex Preddy has got Republicans putting their forked tails between their legs. Are you not hearing this?
Here's the thing. I also run a reproductive rights nonprofit. And so today we have been busy because what a lot of people don't know is that on Friday, the same day that 50,000 Minnesotans marched in the streets, there was also a march of 100,000 anti-abortion extremists and white nationalists in Washington, D.C. on the same day. And so I was in full-on podcast prep mode to sort of talk to people about how do we stay vigilant about all of the other massive oppressive things that are happening at the same time. And it was great because somebody on my team from Abortion Access Front was on the ground. So we'll be talking about that. And then I was the master of ceremonies for that whole massive rally that happened on Friday at the Target Center. And so to be able to watch and talk about the juxtaposition of what people who say they're pro-life talk about versus what people who are marching in the streets in Minnesota who are actually pro-life talk about.
Right.
Can you imagine, Pete? They did a rally, they did a march and a rally, a 2-hour rally. No one who said they were pro-life or for the dignity of life had any mention of any of the immigrants, many of them who are very religious people, whether their faith tradition is Catholicism, Christianity, Muslim, didn't mention not a word about 5-year-olds being set out as bait. Not a word.
Well, they only care about the unborn.
Yeah, you have civil rights until you're born, according to them. Just the second you start crowning, you're done. You're done, people. You can be confiscated.
Oh man, I had no idea that's going on. I'm glad everything gets buried when we have these situations in like we've seen in Minneapolis. Just my entire feed was everything coming out of Minneapolis and still is for 3-4 days. And so you tend to think that's the only thing that's happening, but of course it's not. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. I'm glad that you were doing that and that you were focused on what you do best. But you're also
I just recommend, like, we're going to talk about what's going on in Minnesota now, but like literally listen to I have a podcast called Feminist Buzzkills. Have a listen to it. We're dropping it Friday. So you can really get a gauge of the new playbook from Heritage Foundation that centers around reproductive health care and literally women's rights, how to keep us back in the home. We shouldn't be working, figuring out how to repeal the 19th Amendment and have it be one family, one vote. Like, it's really intense. So it's a good little thing to listen to, but let's talk about, I am in Minnesota right now. That is Minnesota. Give a wave.
Very important point. Hey, Minnesota, very important point, though, about suffrage is at stake. I mean, there is a mainstream thread now of the conservative MAGA movement, Christian nationalist movement, led by, I believe, a guy named Doug Wilson, who I believe the Secretary of Defense or War DUI hire, Pete Hegseth, is a member of that church. And
he's a spiritual advisor, yes.
Yeah, they believe that women should not vote, or there should just be one vote in a household, and it should be done by the man. It's crazy stuff. People should dig into it.
Doug Wilson's famous quote of 2025 when asked what the role of women is in society. And he said, and I am quoting, "Women are people that people come out of."
Well, and technically he is right.
Yes, that is what we
are. I'm with Doug Wilson.
I'm with Doug Wilson. Women are people that people come out of. It sounds like a tagline for like some weird Rand Corporation kind of thing.
Well, anything you can do to dehumanize is, I mean, that seems to be the theme. And I always want to just try to be on my toes that I don't start doing that, because I hate so many of these people, but I don't want to become sadistic and take joy in their suffering. Maybe a couple of individuals, but I mean, that's so much of who these people are just dehumanizing, in this case, women, immigrants. They're not human beings. I guess an ICU nurse who takes care of veterans, also not a human with rights, even if you disagree with why he's out there. So let's get into Minneapolis. You were born and raised there. You know this town as well as anybody. You're there now. You're there a lot of your life. What do you want to tell us, kind of the background of the people? And Minnesota seems to have had like the worst year ever. The shooting of those two congresswomen, congresspeople. You also had
Congress. They were in the House of
State House. The State House. Yeah. Forgive me. You had the horrible church shooting, I believe. You obviously have had ice rain terror on your town, and more. This controversy about the scandal with the defrauding the government, whatever, and that being blown way out of proportion. So much attention on Minneapolis. Who did Minneapolis hurt? Who did Minnesota hurt?
Donald Trump, apparently. I mean, the short answer is this is a state, and no one really who's never been here, like, they never really understood. If you've ever met a Minnesotan, we can't stop flapping our gums about how great it is here, but it's rooted in a tradition of indigenous, beliefs for the land, for how we treat our environment, how we treat our people, how community and mutual aid matters. Then you have the Scandinavian immigrant tradition of democratic socialism. Hello. And then you have winters, you have environments that we're just brought up that you can't go it alone here. when it's this cold for this long,
Right.
you need your neighbors constantly to be, it's a give and take all the time. Like when you live here, you just like, when there's a problem, you throw it out on the table like puzzle pieces, and you're like, who's taking this, who's taking this, who's taking this, who's not, I need to do everything, but like, here's what I'm good at, here's what you're good at.
Community, working together.
All the time. And it's funny, Pete, because like growing up, if you ever talk to Minnesotans, we rarely use the word community. We often use the word neighborhood in replacement of it. Not that there's anything wrong with community, but we really feel that everybody who lives here is our neighbor, whether or not we've ever met them, whether or not they're actually living in proximity to where we are. But the word neighbor is really key here. And so, you know, it's funny because we've long had the most progressive and thriving immigrant policies in the nation, starting when refugees came through after the Vietnam War.
Right, the Hmong people, they were brought here. I mean, they were.
The Lutheran Church sponsored, you know, Laotian, Hmong, Vietnamese, Cambodian folks to come and live here, and then Ethiopian, Somali folks, and it's been a place that has thrived. And, you know, it's funny because it's also a very provincial place. So what's been really interesting to watch is literally, if you're like a person who got transferred here to be a regional manager for like Best Buy, because that's like one of the corporations that's headquartered here, and you can move here from Toledo, like people, it takes like between 12 and 15 years for Minnesotans to even like trust you enough to tell you their middle name, right? We're just like, who are you? What are you doing here? Right. But we're fine. You're here. But you know, it's like somebody said, the best way to get to know a Minnesotan is go to kindergarten with them. And it's very true. But as communities expanded here, everything is revolved around food, Pete. We know this, right? So before we had this raging culture growth and expansion, we had food that was light gray. That is what the food was. It was just things that were white, things that cream of mushroom soup was like America's binder. You know, it was terrible. So enter the Latino community and the Ethiopian community and the Somali community and the Vietnamese community. And all of a sudden, people started taking potatoes and making them better. And if you can take a potato in this country and make it better, we will ride at dawn for you. Like, forget about it, right? And so it's really been this, the diaspora has come here and settled and expanded what we think of as Minnesotans and what we value as Minnesotans. And so to have these Gestapo come in dressed in Carhartt, which in Minnesota is the outerwear of the do-gooder,
right,
to start harming our people and our way of life. And what we've done, we've worked really hard to preserve. We have 20,000 lakes here. You know, we have a park every mile and a half. There is a park in this city. You know, so what we've fought for, trans folks, all these immigrants, all of this stuff that has made Minnesota great. If you'll remember, it's all the stuff that Trump said was destroying America.
Right.
So to have Minnesota thrive in the wake of his entire drumbeat has had him solely focused on Minnesota in a way that is so next level. And what nobody counted on was, why are you sending your jackbooted thugs here from Texas and all these other weak ass weather states into the place where we thrive the hardest when it's 40 below zero? And you know, we're kind of quiet. I mean, I know I'm not really a good example of a Minnesotan because I'm not quiet, but like people are very quiet, but they take that as passive. And it was just like, no, we will stand here all day, all night. We have all the gear for it. And don't try us because we know how good it is. That's why we're out defending it.
What are people saying there? That's a great description of Minnesota and their culture in a lot of different ways. But what are people thinking as to why Minneapolis, the Twin Cities, have been targeted? Because there's a lot of pretty obvious kind of conclusions one could draw from Trump found out about Minneapolis when Tim Walz ran on the ticket with Kamala Harris, and he didn't like him. You can talk about that stupid conservative saboteur video guy who made the thing about the daycares and the Somalians. Ilhan Omar is a black woman and a Muslim, so he hates her. And she's been on his radar for a long time because she is strong and smart and effective. And he hates smart, effective women, much less brown women. And so there's a lot of like conclusions around he lost the state. But what do Minnesotans think? How do you feel? What is the conversation about why you are being targeted and potentially made an example of?
Well, I think it goes back to, I touched on it briefly, but it really is, we're a trans haven state. We are one of the most progressive states around reproductive access. Our refugee policies, our immigrant policies, we have breakfast and lunch programs in all of our public schools, free breakfast and lunch for anybody, doesn't matter. So all of the things that we've been told are destroying America, immigrants, social programs, healthcare, all of it exist here and thrive here and make this place great. And we've seen it help families. We've seen it help grow. We have like, it was voted like the #2 place to live in America. Like corporate, there are so many corporate Target is headquartered here. Best Buy is headquartered here. 3M is headquartered here. Cargill is headquartered here. So there's all these corporate places that are headquartered here that are, they thrive when they're here. So it is literally, it ruins the gaslight for Trump of everything he says is bad for America. Mm-hmm. When implemented, right? We are implementing the liberal progressive.
You're the experiment in democracy of progressive kind of enlightenment from Paul Wellstone, Al Franken, and Amy Klobuchar, Tim Walz, and all of these other leaders.
Yes. And so watching a state thrive and watching a state have so much pride and understand what it means. I mean, Paul Wellstone's slogan, is, we all do better when we all do better. And there was lawn signs up when Wellstone was alive that said, I'll pay more taxes for a better Minnesota. People see, and we pay a lot of taxes here. There's no question. We pay high taxes, but we have lakes in the middle of our city we can swim in.
Yeah.
We have education. Our public schools are fantastic. Just the way we care about each other and the way that we rely on each other, nobody is going to come in and ruin that for us. And, a little known story that's happening on top of all of this attack is we also have in our Canadian border, we have some of the most beautiful, pristine lakes and rivers called the Boundary Waters. Which people can canoe, you can drink the water in some of these lakes, people camp and canoe, and it's one of the most incredible wonders of the state for people who love to fish, people who love to canoe, people, it's just stunning. And right now, going through Congress is a bill to allow a Chilean mining company to come in and drill on the borders of the Boundary Waters. There's never been a mining incident that didn't pollute a natural habitat when that happens. So, and that's just under the radar, but it's just one more thing to try to turn Minnesota into the shithole that Trump wants it to be.
Yeah, they're trying to, obviously Republicans always try to develop
anything,
anywhere.
That's just on top of everything.
I heard about that. I want to look into that. I have a feeling that Minnesotans are going to stand up against that the way they stood up against ICE. By the way,
but you should really do a piece on it and talk to some of the environmental folks here because it's a really important story.
No idea.
But watching us in action and watching how Minnesotans are taking action.
Yeah.
There's the big things that you see, right? You see people demonstrating out in the streets, but there are now community organizations that are patrolling every one of the parks outside of the Whipple building where they're bringing the detainees, because they're taking detainees without coats, without anything, And once they realize they're citizens or they can't hold them, they're dropping them off in parks with no clothes in this weather.
Yeah.
Like no coat. So now there's citizen patrols who have cars full of coats and food to take them home.
I talked to this guy, listener, Adam, on the show yesterday, and it's like whole networks of people helping people, driving people,
That's
getting
who we
groceries
are.
for people, homeschooling people.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
it's really very impressive, and nobody wanted to be in this position, and nobody wanted to be the ones we were waiting for. But it sure does seem that you guys, being at the tip of the spear of this horrific reign of terror and experiment that they're doing, you guys have, maybe you're the ones it's supposed to happen to, so you could show the rest of us, if it happens in our town, if it happens in our city, we should copy the organization and motivation and tactics that you guys are using.
Well, and it's like the Black and brown community, the Indigenous community has been organizing and fighting back for years. So they've been like our teachers.
Right.
And then when George Floyd happened, those communities of people who were organizing and creating signal chats and neighborhood.
Right.
It started. And
those networks were probably started. Yeah, it started in large part of then. Yeah, it's a really interesting point.
And those networks were the first to become indivisible chapters. And so they stayed connected as friends and as community, coming together in tragedy, but staying together in community. And then, so when this happened, it was a matter of
activating those networks
and finding out what needed to happen from the folks who it was really happening to. Right. And so see, the stuff people don't think about are like making sure that we have a thriving halal food pantry, right? So that Muslim folks can get halal food, and not just because they can't just go to a food pantry because they need halal food, right? And so making sure that places like that are funded, making sure that, there's a network of people who are just going and parking the cars of the people who've been snatched out of their cars, parking their cars, retrieving their belongings and finding out where people live so they can bring their belongings back to them. It's just like people are picking up their neighbors who they work with at restaurants and picking them up at their houses, and they're driving them to work in the trunks of their car so that ICE doesn't find them.
I hadn't heard that. Oh my God. It's horrible, but also amazing.
And it's
who would ever think you would be doing that in life? Would be in a trunk, much less driving someone in a trunk. What American thought they would be doing that in their city? I suppose Minneapolis folks are, what do you call people from Minneapolis? Minneapolis?
Minneapolitans.
Minneapolitans?
Minneapolitans. Yeah.
Minneapolitans are probably asking themselves all the time, I never thought I would be in this place. Let me just ask you, because like you're a big sister to me and a mentor, and I can say things to you and they can be dumb and you can make me think about them and be smarter. But like, the news today of like Bavino pulling out and Trump kind of pulling back, listening to Waltz, it seems like folks won there. And it seems like Renee Good and Alex Peretti, their deaths were like not for nothing. Like they were for something. Like they protected white people, especially, are supposed to be put in our bodies, our cars, between ourselves and immigrant communities, vulnerable people. This is what we're supposed to be doing. And it seems like, like, I don't know if you want to call them martyrs, if that's a good thing or not, but like it worked. Like this horrific violence. This guy died. She died not for nothing. Am I simplifying? Does it make sense? Is it stupid?
I would never say that anybody died for nothing. I think that's a little.
People say it all the time. People say, "Oh, it's senseless. It's senseless," and I always want to be like, "It's not senseless. Certainly, it's not here." Is what I mean.
I feel like what I would say is, sadly, how I would phrase it is, sadly, it took two white people's deaths to have people understand the profundity of how far these people are. Right. So I think that that might be something. And that what that tells me more is just how insular people live their lives. When you can say, but that's happening over there, it means that your community isn't rich enough to think that there is an over there. I don't think there's an over there. I don't live my life like there's an over there. Right. I live my life in a now because I try to fill my life full of people who are never over there. If you can actually say there's an over there, then that's something wrong with the world, I think, in the greater sense of it, right? So I don't know. I feel like I'm really excited to see that people who have been able to live in a bubble have realized the real way to be anti-racist and to be in the world is that you have to, it's kind of like you said, shed that proximity to safety and privilege and decide that your skin in the game could get burned or bruised or incinerated. But the game itself is the fight for humanity and for neighbors. And that fight is stronger than what happens to your skin.
That's right. Well said. Do you know Anya Kamenetz? She's a former NPR reporter and doing her own thing now. Written a bunch of books. If you don't know her, you guys should connect because she's great and you're great. But she had this article that she wrote yesterday titled "Send This to Your Friend Who Isn't Political. It's Time." It's what you were just saying. Like this is a crucible moment, an inflection point where those who weren't political, I feel like we're going to have a lot more of those moments. It's going to draw more and more people in. But Renee Good, Alex Perrette, and I mean, several other things. You can no longer sit on the sidelines. Like if you're not political, if you're not paying attention, it's time to jump in because
yeah, I'm sorry. I just interrupted. But I think that the thing that's crucial, and it's what we do at my nonprofit Abortion Access Front, is when I started it, I wanted to create opportunities for people to plug in where whatever they felt their capacities were or their skill set or whatever, they could do that. And right now in Minnesota, people are doing everything from neighborhood watches to constitutional observing to, when you go to mutual aid places, you can do everything from doing intake for the donations that come in to sorting the donations that came in or sitting at a table and writing notes of support that go in to the groceries that you're doing. You can drive a car to a curb. You can return somebody's purse. There's a jillion ways, large and small, that you can do it. And I highly, 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 highly recommend for anybody who is like, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start, to look at when people post lists, but do something that you can connect with other people on so that you really do understand the purpose of what you're doing. You're part of a larger wheel and you don't have to do everything. You can do the thing that works for you. But I rented a car here because I can't drive my car around because I just had two dear friends who were doing observing with phones from their cars, and I tracked their plates. And when they went home, they were outside of their house saying, "This is a warning." So this is the kind of thing that's happening. So I've rented a car because I'm not going to drive my car around anymore. Right. I don't want to get tracked. And they're outside of every single place where people are taking donations, every single place where
the federal government is agents.
Yes, ICE. And you can't, what people don't understand, you can see this on the news all you want. Everywhere you go is ICE. Every grocery store you go to, every gas station you go to, they're out there everywhere.
See them, is it always ICE? Is it CPB? Are they always?
I don't know. Who knows, Pete? You don't know.
Oh, they're not always. So they're not labeled and wearing masks. You don't know if they are. They're undercover.
Just people in unmarked cars with guns, kind of dressed the same.
Got it.
I can't pick them out. I don't know.
But even if, and that creates a kind of fear, and I mean, and that's part of it. It's like nobody wants to live like that.
No, I have an elderly sister who's got comorbidities, right? When she's terrified to leave her home because she's not on social media all the time. She's not as plugged in as people, but she's afraid she's going to turn the corner of a street and end up in a car backup. And when they go, "Who are you?" she can't get her purse fast enough and they pull her out of the car and throw her to the ground. That's where we're at.
People are terrified, but they're still showing up.
Yes, because there's no other choice.
Right.
And I want everybody to really understand that people don't show up this way unless the place they live has showed up for them. And so understand, historically, Minnesota shows up in a myriad of ways,
Right.
in providing beauty and nature and schools and resources. And so that is what we are fighting for, what we've been living.
Let me just ask you, there's so many general questions I could talk with you about just in terms of activism and politics in general, but I just want to ask you, because you've been literally on the front lines of protests and arguably on one of the most controversial issues, women's reproductive rights. So you've been threatened everywhere you've gone and everywhere you've shown up and everywhere you've appeared on every television show and everywhere else. And so you're no stranger to these types of threats and the danger that your work brings. But when it comes to protests and the kind of protests that we've seen not only in Minneapolis, but in LA and Chicago and other places, what do you make of these protesters who are putting themselves in the way, impeding federal agents, yelling at federal agents? It's all nonviolent. There is a long history in this country and many others of this kind of protest, sitting down in the middle of the street, blocking. It's called nonviolent. It's nonviolent to yell. It's nonviolent to put yourself or something else inanimate in the way of a car. These are nonviolent protests. You can be arrested for them, but the idea that people are being beaten and obviously executed, that's different. That's different to America. It's happened, but usually it's more of an aberration. And it's what we've always been afraid of. What do you want to say about the types of protests that you're seeing and the types of actions that are being taken as a result? Because plenty of our neighbors and friends are simply saying, and even people, watching us right now, they shouldn't have been in the way. And I always say, put it under your name that you think that person that was peacefully protesting, that ICU nurse who takes care of veterans every day, done more in his one day than you in your whole life. Put it under your name that you think you should have been executed and shot 10 times, because people can be arrested for protesting and not be beaten to death.
Well, I would say that it's not an aberration, because the entire civil rights movement was hosed, had dogs set on them, were beaten, were blown up, were lynched. It was, this behavior happened to Black folks fighting for their emancipation, and the white folks with them, but Black folks fighting for their emancipation through the entire movement. And through that entire movement, they remain nonviolent. So what I would say is it is not when we do sit-ins, when we do something that is going to break the law, we do it knowing what the penalty is according to the laws and the Constitution. We know we'll be arrested. But to your point, ICE shouldn't be beating anyone in the streets. They are a immigration enforcement agency. They are supposed to be, in their existence, finding the rapists and the people, knowing where they live, and going and getting them and arresting them, and then in a world that makes sense, a government that works, they go through a due process, and then they are found guilty or innocent by a court, and then they are deported or not. But so people often forget in the sauce, coming here without papers or not through legal channels is a civil offense, not a criminal offense. And so we are so far beyond, what they're doing is so far beyond trying to get some kind of handle on what's happening with immigration, an immigration problem. If you're dropping people in parks with no clothes on, if you're arresting old people who are in their underwear and it's a mistaken problem, and you put a gun to that person's daughter's head and you accuse them of running a pedophile ring in their house when no such thing has happened, and then you just bring them back, and then they're left with the trauma. Think of what children are going through.
Yeah.
So it's, the expectation of a system that will work for you is something that is quite privileged, right? And so I think I think the bigger point is we are realizing how flawed a system is. And when people don't want it to work for you, they will make it not work for you.
That's right. Finally, before I let you go, what, if anything, would you like to see more from, whether it be your electeds there, or are you happy with the leadership of the mayor and the governor and others in Minnesota?
I think we just need to fight very hard to abolish this rotten to the core environment. I think that I would like to see ICE not funded. I would like to see the DHS not funded. I would like to see Bongino and Pam Bondi and Christine Nome and Kash Patel and Tom Holman and every single person who works for this thuggery prosecuted. I would like to see Democrats stand up and do everything in their can. And more importantly, I would like to see Republicans actually decide that the rule of law actually matters. And if you can continue to watch what's happening in Minnesota and what's happening to these people, and if you are getting your panties in such a twist to make it okay, you are mentally defective. You are mentally defective.
Fully agree. As always, I really appreciate you joining me today on short notice, Liz. I've been thinking about you for weeks. I've been seeing your posting and been wanting to reach out to you. I really appreciate you doing this with me today. Keep up the great work.
With me. Thanks. I'm just here doing and being a citizen like everybody else here, but it's really, I think it's really valuable to talk to people who have really strong lived experience here, historically and in the now. Because I think it's a perspective that we should be hearing all the time.
And like I said, the rest of us have a lot to learn from the tactics, techniques.
Yeah, we're just great here. Sorry,
you are
great.
You know, one of the greatest. I haven't spent a lot of time in Minnesota or Minneapolis. I've been there a few times, but one of the greatest comedy clubs in the country is Acme Comedy Club in Minneapolis. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know if it's still legendary, but it used to be back in the day, man.
Yeah, I think it still is. I don't work there.
Tuesday nights with their Friday night energy. I remember that. It's just unbelievable. Liz, you're the best. Thank you very much for joining me. Thanks for watching live.
Send your love to Minnesota. We need it.